Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 2,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy the content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
Let me ask you something. A few months ago, did you have any confidence whatsoever that the Minnesota Vikings were going to find their way out of a $45 million salary cap hole before free agency? Because honestly, most of us were sitting here in the dead of winter staring at that number thinking this front office was cooked, done, buried. A team that had mortgaged its future chasing wins under Adofo-Mensah, now left holding the bill with nowhere to turn. And yet here we are, days away from free agency opening, and Rob Brzezinski has pulled off what can only be described as one of the most impressive cap gymnastics routines the NFL has seen in recent memory. So let's break it all down. The moves, the math, the madness, and what it all means for your Minnesota Vikings heading into what could be one of the most pivotal off-seasons in franchise history. Let's start at the beginning, because the context matters enormously here. When the Vikings closed out the 2025 season and began staring down the barrel of the 2026 league year, they were sitting approximately $43 to $45 million over the cap. Not a little over, not maneuverable. We're talking deep in the red, 30th in the entire league, a financial situation that made even die-hard Vikings fans break into a cold sweat. This was the direct consequence of the previous regime's aggressive approach, loading up veterans on heavily guaranteed deals, trying to compete now, around a young quarterback in J.J. McCarthy. Bold strategy, incredibly difficult to unwind when it doesn't go according to plan. But here's where the story gets interesting. Rather than panicking, rather than just slashing the roster to shreds and crossing fingers, interim GM Rob Brzezinski came in with a scalpel instead of a chainsaw. He identified the veterans the team could afford to move on from, guys who weren't producing at the level of their contracts, and started making the tough calls. Jonathan Allen, Javon Hargrave, Aaron Jones. Three notable names, three painful but necessary goodbyes, and suddenly roughly $25 million in cap savings materialized out of those decisions alone. That's not small. That's a franchise-altering chunk of money returned to the books in one fell swoop. But Brzezinski wasn't done. He then turned to the most valuable assets on the roster, the guys Minnesota absolutely cannot afford to lose, and began restructuring their deals to backload money into future years, creating breathing room for right now. Justin Jefferson's deal got restructured. Christian Darrisaw, arguably the best left tackle in all of football, same treatment. Byron Murphy Jr. at cornerback followed suit. Those three restructures alone generated approximately $35 million in cap space. That is extraordinary maneuvering. You're essentially saying to your best players, we need you to help us get through this moment and we'll make it right down the road. And those guys said yes. That says something about the culture Kevin O'Connell has built in that building. Then came the news that stopped Vikings fans in their tracks. Ryan Kelly's retirement, which we'll get into in full detail shortly, and which added another $10 million of breathing room to the equation. Add it all together, and you start to see the picture Brzezinski has been painting. Started $45 million over the cap. Now, after all of this maneuvering, the Vikings are sitting at around negative $5 million. 30th in the league? Yes, still not an enviable position, but with $30 million in workable cap space as the legal tampering window opens. The transformation has been nothing short of stunning. And now we get to the move that genuinely surprised people, the TJ Hockenson restructure. Look, when the reports started trickling in that a deal was being worked on, most of us assumed it was coming. The math practically demanded it. Hockenson was carrying a $21.3 million cap number in 2026, the single highest cap hit for any tight end in the entire NFL. That number was unsustainable for a team clawing its way out of financial disaster. The Vikings had two realistic options, restructure or release. And releasing him, while it would have saved more money up front, somewhere in the neighborhood of $9 million, would have meant gutting the passing offense of its most experienced tight end at a moment when J.J. McCarthy needs every weapon he can get. So the restructure made football sense. What made it genuinely surprising, and this is the part that raised eyebrows league-wide, was the concession the Vikings had to make to get it done. According to Tom Pelissero, as part of the agreement, the Vikings deleted the final year of Hawkinson's deal. So yes, he takes a $5 million pay cut, which gives Minnesota cap relief. But in exchange, he now enters 2026 as essentially a free agent in waiting, a contract year player with every motivation to go out and remind the league who TJ Hawkinson is. That's actually a fascinating dynamic. Because here's the thing about Hawkinson, the last 2 seasons have not been kind to him. A serious knee injury in late 2023 robbed him of much of the 2024 season, and when he came back in 2025, the production just wasn't there the way we'd grown accustomed to. 51 catches for 438 yards and 3 touchdowns across 15 games. For a guy who was reeling off 95-catch, 960-yard seasons, that's a significant step back. There were questions about his route running, concerns about his hands, and a general sense that the player who torched defenses in that breakout 2023 campaign was still somewhere finding his way back. But context is everything. The Vikings' quarterback situation in 2025 was, to put it charitably, a work in progress. Hawkinson's production doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's tied directly to the quality of the throws coming his way. If Brzezinski and ownership can solve the quarterback puzzle this offseason, and the Kyler Murray situation makes that more plausible than it's been in years, a motivated, contract-year TJ Hawkinson playing for his next big payday could absolutely bounce back in a serious way. Don't write him off yet. And the ripple effects of keeping Hawkinson matter beyond just his stat line. It pushes back any urgency to draft a tight end this April. Josh Oliver is a capable run-blocking option, but he's not a receiving threat. Hawkinson is still the best pass-catching tight end on this roster by a wide margin, and as long as he's healthy and motivated, Minnesota doesn't need to burn a draft pick solving that problem. That pick can go elsewhere: offensive line, edge rusher, quarterback depth, whatever the board presents on draft day. There are still more levers to pull, too. The Brian O'Neill extension is reportedly incoming and could free up another $14 million or so in 2026 cap space when it gets done. Jonathan Greenard's future remains a question mark. The Vikings are reportedly entertaining trade offers on the edge rusher as he seeks a raise on a deal paying him north of $18 million this season. Jonathan Greenard's situation is also a variable yet to be fully resolved. Every one of these moves adds another layer to what Brzezinski is building, and every move executed cleanly adds another line to his resume as the Vikings ownership evaluates who will run this franchise going forward. And that is absolutely the subplot that makes everything Brzezinski does this offseason carry extra weight. He is operating as interim general manager, which means every press conference, every contract negotiation, every roster decision is both a business necessity and an audition. When the Vikings eventually open their formal GM search, after free agency, after the draft, after the dust settles, Rob Brzezinski will be sitting across that table not with a hypothetical track record, but with a real one. He will have navigated one of the most complex cap situations in the league. He will have managed free agency. He will have made draft selections. That's resume material you can't manufacture. You either get it done or you don't. The Wilf family and the ownership group, working in concert with Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores, have had a front-row seat to every decision. They've watched Brzezinski work the phones, restructure contracts, make difficult cuts, and slowly, methodically turn a team that was drowning in red ink into a team that can actually compete in free agency. If the first wave of signings goes well, if the Vikings land the right quarterback, add the right pieces on defense, and do it without blowing up the financial structure for the next 3 years, the case for keeping Brzezinski as the permanent GM becomes very, very compelling. Maybe they don't need to look elsewhere. Maybe the answer was already in the building. Now let's shift gears and do what this team and this fan base absolutely owes Ryan Kelly, a proper send-off. Because the news of Kelly's retirement, announced on his social media on Friday, deserves more than a footnote in a cap summary article. This was a man who gave 10 years of his life to professional football, who endured the physical punishment of playing center in the NFL for a full decade, and who did it with the kind of toughness and professionalism that organizations remember long after the player is gone. Kelly was drafted 18th overall out of Alabama by the Indianapolis Colts in 2016, and he proceeded to spend 9 years in Indy, becoming one of the most respected centers in the game. 4 Pro Bowls, a second-team All-Pro in 2020, a player who, when healthy, was as good as anyone lining up over the ball on Sunday afternoons. Then last spring, he made the leap to Minnesota on a 2-year, $18 million deal, brought in specifically to anchor the offensive line for J.J. McCarthy's first season as a starting quarterback. The idea made perfect sense on paper. A 4-time Pro Bowler providing veteran leadership and elite technique right at the most important interior position. Reality, as it so often does, had other plans. Kelly suffered 3 separate concussions across the 2025 season, the 6th, 7th, and 8th documented concussions of his NFL career. 3 concussions in one season. That's not a footnote. That's a crisis. The first hit him in Week 2 against Atlanta. He came back, played in Dublin in Week 4, and suffered another one within 15 days. He hit injured reserve, missed 2 months, came back wearing a Guardian cap as an extra precautionary measure, and then was concussed a 3rd time against the Giants in late December. That Giants game was the last game of his career. When healthy, Kelly was genuinely special. His PFF grade of 82.2 last season ranked 4th among all centers who played at least 200 snaps. The Vikings' offense was measurably better when he was on the field. But you simply cannot keep putting a man's brain at risk. 6 documented career concussions, including 3 in a single season, made the outcome inevitable, even if it was still painful to see it arrive. Kelly's statement on social media was the kind of graceful exit you'd want for any player. He wrote about 10 seasons, and what an incredible ride it was, about being blessed to be around some of the greatest people this sport has to offer, about always wanting to leave each place better than how he found it. Simple, genuine, no bitterness, no drama, just a man at peace with a career well lived and a body that had finally told him enough is enough. Here's what makes Kelly's Minnesota chapter uniquely poignant. He spent 9 seasons as a Colt, 9 years in blue, and yet he retires a Viking. He'll hang up the cleats in purple and gold, which is a small but meaningful thing for a franchise that gave him one final season and genuinely appreciated what he brought to the locker room even when injuries kept taking him off the field. He's a Viking forever, and that matters. From a cap standpoint, Kelly's retirement frees up roughly $10 million for Minnesota, though finding his replacement is a legitimate challenge. Blake Brandel and Michael Juergens both took snaps at center in 2025 when Kelly was unavailable. Juergens, a 2024 7th-round pick, showed some promise. The Vikings will almost certainly be in the market for center help, whether through free agency or the draft, a draft that currently has Minnesota holding 8 picks, including first and second rounders. So where does all of this leave your Minnesota Vikings? In a position nobody quite expected them to be in 3 months ago. Financially functional, roster mostly intact, strategic flexibility restored. The $45 million hole has essentially been filled. There's real money to spend in free agency. The quarterback conversation, Kyler Murray, Daniel Jones, and whoever else Brzezinski decides to pursue, is now an active, funded conversation rather than a pipe dream. This team can compete. This team can add. This team has a genuine shot at building something real around J.J. McCarthy in year 2. The work isn't done. Free agency opens, and the real test begins. Every dollar spent in the next few weeks is a referendum on Brzezinski's judgment, O'Connell's vision, and this organization's ability to learn from the mistakes that created this mess in the first place. But if the first act of the 2026 Vikings offseason is any indication, the people running this franchise right now have a plan. They're executing it, and the best part, they're doing it while keeping the core together. Skol, Vikings. The comeback story is just getting started. If you made it this far, you already know what to do. Smash that like button, Drop a comment below letting us know what you think about Brzezinski's cap work and whether you believe he's already earned the permanent GM job. And hit subscribe so you don't miss a single move as free agency unfolds. The market opens Monday, and this channel will have every update, every signing, every rumor covered as it happens. Don't miss it. We'll see you in the next one.
Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 2,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy the content, please hit that subscribe button right now.